You hit record, right?
Wait, what?
Are we on?
Yeah. Oh, shoot. Man, let's not do this like last time. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. Yes. We're
Oh,
recording.
there we go.
Got it.
All right.
Okay.
We're here now. This is great, Chris. I'm so excited about this.
I'm excited that we're not going to talk for 20 minutes and not have it recorded this time. So yes, we're already off on a good start.
We are off on a good start. That is absolutely right.
Yeah.
Man, and just thinking about season 2, oh man, I'm so excited about the stuff we're going to talk about in season 2. This is great.
I feel pretty privileged in that I have a chance to hear some of it ahead of time of what you're working on. So
well,
it's
and
going to
I
be
feel
good.
privileged that I'm not going to be talking to my coats hanging in the back of my closet this season, but I'm actually going to be talking to you. It's so much better. I mean,
okay, so and that's good. That's good. Tell what's going on here, Kaben. Maybe we should explain what this little quirky thing that we're doing here right now. And
yeah, so
who the heck is this guy talking?
Right. Chris Quandt,
hey,
extraordinaire talent.
Your
here
checks
to
in the mail.
just take this up to the highest possible level, which I'm thrilled about. Yeah, I guess there are going to be some people listening to this who also heard season 1, and they might be a little bit confused about what's going on. So now that we're recording, we can explain what it is we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, season 2, we're going to be doing a few different things new from season 1. And obviously the first thing you heard that Chris is here. And again, Chris is just incredibly talented. Radio talent, voice talent. He's got all the goods that I don't have. So he's even hooked us up with some really nice equipment. I mean, this is a whole new of Dust and Divinity for season 2.
Look, you proved yourself with season 1. Now we say, all right, Kaben, let's get you some equipment. Let's get some microphones in there. Let's make this happen.
Well, I proved that I'm crazy enough to keep going from season 1. Maybe that's it. Although, you know what? I got to tell you, Chris, we had almost 10,000 downloads on season 1, which blew me away. I mean, I was not expecting that. And honestly, I'm not here for the numbers, but it was encouraging to hear that there was something going on in season 1 that a lot of people connected with.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was cool.
I told you, I shared with you that you were my partner on my morning walks. It's my morning routine to do a 2-mile walk, and an episode of Dust and Divinity would get me about that 40. I'm a slow walker. Perfect. One episode would get me about through my walks.
Well, see, now you got to work out a little bit harder, because in season 2, we're going to be hopefully doing a little bit shorter episodes too. So we want to make it just a little bit catchier. We want to roll through a little bit faster. And so you got to just walk faster, Chris. That's what's going to happen now.
I'm going to get in shape one way or the other. Let's do this. Well, fantastic. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. One of the things that, I was interacting with some of the listeners from season 1, and they said, you're out on your farm a lot. You're on your tractor a lot. You're thinking about these things a lot. We just want to hear some more of those thoughts. And, my initial response was, gosh, I feel like I put a lot of myself into season 1. But then as I've been going back and listening, it's like, okay, yeah, I got about 2/10 of the way through that thought, and it was enough to, kind of launch the next part of the conversation with that particular guest. And then I just let the rest lie.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't keep chasing it down. And so I thought, maybe there is some space in season 2, especially, with you, Chris, where you and I, we can just kind of talk some things out, maybe unpack some things in a little bit deeper level, share some things I've been thinking about on the tractor, and just kind of see where it goes, and have it be more of a just intimate conversation. Kind of we're not trying to put on a performance for anyone. We're just trying to work through some stuff, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I love it when we were talking about it and we were kind of brainstorming a little bit about what this could be, how we could do it. I love what you say, calling it tractor thoughts, right? Like maybe it's just as simple as that, as like under the umbrella of Dust and Divinity, we have almost a show within a show, right? Where we could say, hey, let's take some time, exactly what you said, Kaben, to maybe unpack some of those thoughts that have kind of been put out there a little bit, but have some time to maybe let them breathe a little bit and sit and be present in that space. And I think, as we were talking about that, that's what we're going to try to accomplish here. Whether we do it that way or not, that's basically the goal here, is to, again, see what's ruminating in your head as you're going through there. I told Kaben so we have basically a show notes of what we're going to cover during the show. And, it's a Google Doc, so we can, collaborate back and forth on them. And I listed on there, I put Chris's tractor envy. And I got Kaben, the kind of like that high pitched, head to the side, like, wait, what? basically it was, I hear you're out there during the day on the tractor, on the farm, and, you know, I'm sitting in an office and kind of have these little tasks that I'm trying to complete. I'm like, man, it's so nice that he can just be out there and just think about stuff and listen to these podcasts and books and all these things. And I know there's stresses, like being a farmer is probably one of the most stressful things out there, right? But
only
I
if you
do
like making money. If you don't like making money, there's no stress in farming at all.
yeah, a constant paycheck is kind of nice, yeah. But it's like the grass is always greener on the other side of the walnut field, right? Like oh man, he's just got the life. And so that's a little bit of my tractor envy coming in and being able to help unpack these thoughts and basically just kind of be an active participant in hearing what you're talking about and maybe lend another voice to the conversation. I mean, I was telling you too before that, and hang on, I'm going to monologue here for a second, Kaben, but the idea of, you know, folks have been used to your voice kind of guiding through, and we still want that to be it. But I compare it to when you have another voice, like it's adding another note to the song or to the symphony, and people kind of go, what, who's that voice there? And so my hope is that, I think it's our hope that the harmony will come pretty quick here on this little offshoot called Tractor Thoughts, and something that will just really give folks a chance to just be able to dwell and think about these things along with us.
Yeah. And I am already just so thankful for the voice that you bring, Chris, because you bring out just such a more rounded voice, right? And then instead of my little voice over here in the corner, and the way that you're able to pick things out and put things together, I know that everyone listening is going to be like, so good. They're going to be wondering why this didn't happen sooner. They're going to be like, I sat through a whole season without Chris's voice on this. Like, how did I even make it?
Your check's in the mail.
So
come
much
on.
better.
Come on.
Yeah. I'll fill that check out once I get a check for the walnuts, which, you know, we may all be in our graves by then. We'll see.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. No, I think the goal is we want to be informative. We want to think, we want to make folks think, but we want to have some fun, right? We want to maybe have some laughs and all of that. Speaking of
and you know, there's actually a couple other elements here too that are coming into season 2 that maybe are worth mentioning. You know, first of all, we are still going to have guests, and the guests, you know, in season 1, if any of you listen to season 1, we always had a couple of guests on. We're reformatting that for season 2. We're going to do more targeted interviews, one-on-one, and most of those are just going to be me and a guest. Some of them might be me, Chris, and a guest. Some of them might even be Chris and a guest. We're going to see how that all pans out over time. But it's going to be a little bit more targeted. And then we're also going to be having a Patreon too, because we want your voice involved in this as well. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be having every time an episode drops, there's going to be a Patreon specific video uploaded to our page where we actually have someone on who challenges some of the things that we say specifically. They're going to be there to try to poke some holes in it, try to add some more depth and context to it. So if you listen to an episode and you're like, oh man, you know, a couple thoughts really tugged on you a little bit and you want to just kind of wheedle at them a little bit more, jump on our Patreon. There's going to be more content there for you, and then we'll be able to engage you as well. So all around, we want to do even more thinking and even more kind of ruminating than we even did last season.
So good. And you said something too, video. Actually, that's going to be another thing this time is we're going to have video. As well. So if you want to see what our ugly mugs look like and kind of see the process and the folks that were being interviewed, we'll make the video available as well.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to that. I mean, because that's what we're doing right now, right? We're able to see each other. And this is new, you know, every single conversation we did in season 1, I couldn't see anyone I was in conversation with. And boy, now that I can, I don't know how I did season 1 without that. And I just, man, props to all my season 1 guests, because that was huge. I mean, I already had respect for them for putting up with me for, you know, an hour and a half at a time, but like putting up with me without even being able to see me and interact in that way. I mean, double props to them. So I'm thrilled with this video edition. I think just all the things stacked together, season 2 is going to be amazing.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun. So we're gonna jump in. We're gonna make everybody think and kind of journey with us here. So before we jump in, we'll see if this works at the beginning of every episode or not. But I say, okay, you're holding up something there. It's what are you drinking, Kaben? What do we got?
This is liquid gold right here. This is some Balvenie 12-year single malt Scotch. And Chris, I think if I were to be drinking a different Scotch that I have in my cabinet, every time you and I have a conversation, we might make it through a couple of seasons before I go through my collection. So that might be a personal challenge I take on, is like, can I drink a different Scotch? Because of course I have my preferences, right? So we'll see. We'll see how many times Balvenie circles back around, because that is one of the go-to classics. But Chris, I am not alone in drinking as we have this conversation.
No.
So what is it that you're drinking? It looks like it might be a campfire, but it might be something.
Yeah. So it's I've got it in my little tin mug here. I I very specifically didn't tell you what I was drinking because I was just going to save it for when we're recording, just to see what your reaction would be. I am drinking a beetroot latte.
What? Don't you got to say that again, and say it slowly, and say it like you're proud of it, because what are you even doing right now?
And this is why I didn't tell you ahead of time. I am drinking a beetroot latte, and people are going out there, yeah, right, Dwight Schrute, yeah, you're drinking a beetroot. I am. This is actually, I don't know that if I can show this to you. It's like this pink whatever, but yeah.
No.
I am trying to get more beets into my life. And that is not because I like beets by any stretch of the imagination. It turns out that I am of an age now where turns out beets help with your gallbladder. And so I am trying to find creative ways to ingest beets into my system.
So while I eviscerate my liver, you're healing your gallbladder. Is that what's happening right now? Is that the dynamic we're building?
I'm trying to save it. I'm trying not to be doubled over in pain like I have been in the past.
Okay, just first walk me through, how does one go about making a beetroot latte?
Well, first you get the powder, because it's ground down to a powder, and I do not do spice very well, like peppery or very spicy things. I have a very bland palate, I'll just say that. And when I got this, I didn't know that it had cayenne pepper in it.
Oh, so that's a surprise.
So that was a big surprise the first time. So it's a little bit, we're doing some almond milk. We're doing a little bit of oat milk. Oh yeah. We've got a little bit of chocolate powder in there, a pump of sugar-free salted caramel syrup, and there was one more thing in there we've got a little bit of decaf coffee in there. And
so all of it is edible except for the beet powder.
Yeah, pretty much. And it really kind of, we have this like a little Mr. Coffee thing where it lattes, so it'll like spin everything, and it'll put the coffee in, and it'll foam it all up, so it makes kind of a nice foam. It looks like a murder scene. It really, it really does when it starts
pure red splashing over the
like either was a shark attack in this Mr. Coffee thing or whatever.
Tornado mixture coffee.
It's just swirling in this coffee beet tornado. So yeah, I'm drinking a little bit of a beetroot latte here, Kaben.
Wow. Okay. And
I'd
so
like to say it's delicious, but it's not.
Right. But also you do it for yourself, right? I mean, as much as you don't do it for your tongue, your taste buds, you do it for the rest of your body.
That's what I'm hoping. Yeah.
Which then kind of leads us into one of the first things we wanted to kind of get into as far as actual content, not just banter, right? Yeah. But like now we're getting into season 1, which cue the music, and we're back.
There we go.
So now we're actually into it, guys, and this is thrilling. So Chris is over here drinking his beetroot latte, which I still can't really get my head around.
Don't try.
Mostly because I don't like drinking CSI episodes. I prefer to, drink some Nick Offerman, if you catch my meaning here.
I'm with you.
But he's doing it for his health, which is really one of the first things we wanted to, it kind of leads into this bigger theme, right? So now we're going to start kind of revealing what is this overarching theme of season 2. And we're going to start with human health. So Chris, take us through it a little bit more.
Well, one of the points that we have here is you are what you eat, right? Like that really is true. I was having a conversation with a colleague earlier today, and we were talking about it's if you're trying to eat natural, if you're trying to do whatever, if you're gluten free or whatever you're trying to do, you're trying to do what's best for your body, and it can be so hard to do that these
Mm,
days, right? Like it's so easy to reach for junk food. It's so easy to just do the quick snack, guilty as charged, right?
yeah.
And why you just to be intentional about putting good things in your body is harder than ever, to do that. And there's so many, I don't know, there's so many studies done on it, but I mean,
Right.
how's that go for you guys, and especially
Yeah.
in your household?
Oh man, maybe we should do a whole episode just on food, because I do think that there's a place for quick manufactured food. I really do, especially like when we
Mm,
think about, the wildfires in California, or, the snowstorm that hit Texas.
right.
There's a time and a place where we need high calorie, shelf stable food fast and in large quantities. So I'm kind of over hating on manufactured foods. I used to, right? I used to like
Hmm.
have some ideals and romanticize ideas about what it means to like live off the land and things like that. But like I'm kind of over that, because I don't really want to go back to a place where like we all get cholera and die at 27. Like
Right.
I'm cool with the longer lifespan. I recognize that there's some trade-offs involved there, right? So for me, it's about balance. And I do think we're like way swung over on the way too much manufactured foods, and we need to rebalance a little bit towards the middle. So I just cheerlead and am there along with everyone else promoting like eat local, eat fresh,
Mm,
you know, grow foods, not lawns. That's one of the hashtags we use a lot on social media,
yeah.
because we transformed our whole front yard into a living organism, including a little fruit tree orchard, a pigsty, and a garden. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, so I do think we do need to eat more connected.
Talk me through that a little bit, and maybe the process for you. Maybe it's changed, maybe it hasn't changed, but since moving to the farm, being a farmer for a couple of years now, have you still stayed pretty steady, or have your thoughts shifted in the way of like eat natural, eat local, eat whatever you can, grow a farm in your front yard? Has there
Yeah.
been any shift in your thinking, as far
Oh
as
man,
that
there's
goes?
been so many shifts. There's been like 7 shifts, and there's probably another 15 to go.
Right.
And it's been the sense of like, yeah, it really did start kind of idealized and romanticized of like all of us can grow all of our own food in a suburban backyard,
Mm,
right? That's kind of where it started, because there is something to aspire to in that, of like, well, if we set that as a goal, then anything we do that works towards that goal is a positive direction, right?
yeah.
But I'm a totalizing person. So once I made that goal for myself, anytime I didn't reach that goal, I was now a failure instead of a progressive person, right? So then I had to go through some other iterations.
Yeah.
Well, then, a few months ago, my wife had the conversation. She's like, even this idea of eating fresh is a really privileged idea,
Mm,
because even people 100 years ago didn't eat fresh year round. They ate fresh when things were fresh,
yeah.
and then they canned and they preserved and they, tanned meats, and they did all kinds of stuff. And they didn't eat fresh for like 6 months through winter.
Yeah.
Maybe they had some greens, right? Some cauliflower, broccoli, things like that. But like for the most part, when you have a peach, so this is one thing we're trying to do. This is one of the things we're trying to only eat the foods that are actually in season then, and
Mm,
recognize that part of what that means in our current food system is that we're not going to be eating local food during parts of the year. Like we're
yeah.
going to be buying, you know, spaghetti sauce and noodles, and we're going to be making, even though that the food miles on that might be in close to 10,000 food miles on that meal, but like
Yeah.
we're going to do that at sometimes, because that's just also the economy we're in, and we're not going to pretend that we're not there, and we're not going to pretend it doesn't taste good, and we're just going to kind of participate in reality as much as we can. But we're going to eat peaches when peaches are fresh,
Mm,
right? And part of what that does actually is it makes peaches better. And one of the things that, and again, we can do a whole episode on advertising, Chris, because I have
right.
some thoughts on this too. But like one of the things that advertising has done is it says, oh, if a little bit is good, then a lot is better. So
Mm,
advertising said, oh, you like fresh fruit in July and August? Oh, you can have fresh fruit all the time.
yeah.
And what it actually did is it made it less good. It made it thinner, shallower, more brittle.
Yeah.
Not only literally, because if you actually look at the nutritional chemical composition of the fruit that's preserved in cold storage and other things, it's just not nearly as good as fresh off the tree kind of fruit, but also systemically, right? Mentally, psychologically. Now, when people go into a place and they try to get like a watermelon, we just expect it to be a little bit bland and like, oh, all right, it's a
Right.
water. Same with our apples, same with our, even our strawberries. A lot of times, they're like, oh, all right, I guess it's a strawberry. Okay. We have literally watered down our food in this effort to take something good and give it to us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So the more that we can just kind of roll back that dial and say, yes, I love peaches. No, I don't need them all the time.
Yeah.
Right. That's the key to differentiate desire from must have. Right. So when we say that's a really good thing and I'm going to choose to limit my enjoyment of it, it makes it even better.
Yeah.
So that's one
Yeah.
of the things that we have changed in our eating. But, you know, we still shop at Costco and Trader Joe's because, you know, we like the food there and it's at our price point. And
Yep.
that's another important factor. So we're just trying to incorporate, we're trying to diversify a little bit where our food's coming from. And of course, we're trying to take these slow incremental steps more and more towards let's plant what we know we're actually going to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Let's learn to cook with what we actually plant. And let's just move more and more toward, like last summer, we canned a whole bunch of salsa and we canned a whole bunch of other stuff that we're eating through this year. This year, we're going to do that and then hopefully even add a couple more things. And so, yeah, if we just add 2 things that we can every year, I mean, in 10 years, we're going to be canning and, you know, everything that we need. And so, like, there's a part of me that comes from kind of this digital culture in our country. And there's part of me as an Enneagram type 3 who always wants to be the best the first try,
Yeah.
that I'm like, I need to be at 100% on day one. And part of my food journey has been giving myself permission to like, let's just go from 0% to 3%.
Yeah.
And let's call that good enough this year.
Yeah. That's so good. It makes me, so I'm having flashbacks of growing up. And my grandparents had 5 acres, right? So they, you know, going through the depression, coming up, and have always, you know, from when I was born, had a very decent sized garden out in the backyard. And then they had a pasture with cows, and they had an orchard with orange trees and grapes and all that. So basically this whole little self-contained suburban kind of farm. And it really, as you're talking about that, it's a, that's, I've gotten further away from that, you know, in my adulthood, and grandma and grandpa obviously don't have the farm anymore. But the idea of like, I could tell the seasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a very intentional rhythm to where I could go out, and I consider it like, I didn't realize it then, but what the privilege that I had when I was over at grandma and grandpa's house in the summer, like we go out into the garden and I pick an ear of corn right off of the stalk there. And it's some of the sweetest corn I've ever had in my life that only could grow in, you know, in my opinion, could grow in grandma and grandpa's garden, right? Like hated Swiss chard, but grandma always had Swiss chard, like, right. So the fact that my grandmother would walk out into the garden, literally 20 steps from the back door,
Yeah.
pick that up, and we have that fresh on the table in an hour or something like that. Like you don't realize that, and you don't realize how you're marking time by that until you look back and you reflect back on it. They also had an apple orchard, right? So it's, I knew it was fall, you know, when apples came, and there was just boxes of apples that grandpa had gone and picked, and they sold them at the farmer's market, and they would sell at the farmer's market. And it's like, I didn't realize that I was marking time by that.
Mm.
And the fact that grandma would can pears, right? And that was actually a treat to get that pear juice and to have that pear, like maybe not so much in season, but like you're right, like having that scarcity and having that special moment made it oh so much better.
Yeah.
And I think we you're absolutely right. We've gotten away from that. By the way, you're speaking of advertising. I've got my phone sitting here next to me, and I'm gonna be curious when I log into Facebook next time how many advertisements for fruit I'm gonna have pop up on there.
You're funny. But, yeah. Well, and one of the reasons why we want to talk about this whole idea of like you are what you eat is it's a really easy on ramp to this idea that like human health and earth health are connected. Like what you just said about your grandma, like she could literally walk outside her door, pick food, bring it in, and you could eat it. Well, what I heard you say in that was that your grandma could walk out upon the earth, take up the abundance of the earth from the health of the earth, and she could take that gift from the earth and put it inside your body.
Mhm.
And it could do something inside your body that other things couldn't do. Right. So, and so really, and that's kind of one of the directions we're headed towards here with season 2 is what is this connection? What is this intersectionality? And, our brand, other than the podcast, is tenderly rooted. And our byline for our brand is cultivate soil, soul, and city. And really a lot of season 2 is going to be in exploring that intersectionality of soil, soul, and city. And so we're starting with this on-ramp of you are what you eat, right? That's obvious. It's validated. Your grandma validates it. Science validates it.
Yeah.
And of course, we also know that when we exercise outdoors, that's better for our body, right? So not only does our digestive tract benefit, our musculatory system benefits from being connected to the earth.
Yeah.
But I mean, more than that, like our microbiome.
Okay, that I'm looking at the notes here, and I'm like that.
Here
I
we
want to
go.
hit on that because I was just
Yeah.
going to ask you about that. Like, unpack that a little bit for me of what you're meaning by microbiome there.
Okay.
Besides it
So,
being like a 50-cent word there, like, yeah.
oh, that's fine. And to make this not into a 2-hour episode, we could talk more about it later. There's incredible research, but essentially, what they found. Well, first of all, the first main discovery is that 50% of the volume of soil of that growing layer, that top 1 to 12 inches of soil that we call topsoil, 50% of that volume is dead microbes.
Mm.
We didn't know that until maybe a couple decades ago, right? It's this missing link. Understanding the role of microbiology has unlocked a new frontier in understanding that connection between our bodies and the earth. So, microbiology, it's all the little stuff, right? So, getting a little bit, we talk about primary consumers and secondary consumers when you're talking about trophic layers and kind of the food chain. And when you're talking about soil specifically, primary consumers are often the microbes, right? They are the ones who leach the minerals directly from the soil. They incorporate the water and the nutrition in the water directly into their bodies. Then they excrete other good stuff and they die and they give a bunch of other good stuff. Then the nematodes come along and some of the other scavengers and they shred it up, eat it up. And then, they release other they excrete other things that other things eat, right? And so it builds this soil health. Well, what we're also finding in parallel to that, and there's a fantastic book on that if you kind of want a primer on it. The book is called The Hidden Half of Nature, and it talks about this direct connection really explicitly. Highly recommend. It's written by 2 biologists. Fantastic book. We'll link it in the show notes. Along with discovering this microbiology in soil, we're also learning about how dependent our bodies are on microbes, right? We're realizing like there's this new discovery that we don't actually eat food. We put food in our bodies that microbes eat, and then we absorb what they excrete. There's enough microbes in our body that if we were to scrape every single microbe out of our body, it would weigh about 9 pounds.
No kidding.
9 pounds of microbes.
Wow.
You think about how small a microbe is. And again, it's billions of microbes, hundreds and thousands of microorganisms, right? And they've been really vilified, right? We're crazy for our antimicrobial left, right, and center. But there's also been this surge in health sciences for like probiotics.
Yep.
Well, what are that? Those are microbes, right?
Yeah.
We're learning that our bodies need this stuff. And the more we learn about it, the more we find it.
How
right?
interconnected the gut is. I mean, we hear a lot about that, but what lives in your gut and how that can affect your overall health, right? Like those.
And it goes beyond the gut.
Yeah.
I mean, we find microbes in our brains, in our skin, in every organ of our body, every piece of tissue in our body has microbes in it.
Yeah.
And what we're finding more and more is just how critical those microbes are to our life.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take that one step further now. We've also discovered that the microbes that are on the surfaces around us interact with and influence the microbes that are inside of us. So not only you are what you eat, again, because microbes from your food also get into your body and they shift the microbial balance in your GI tract, but you are where you live.
Right.
And what I mean by that is that your biome assimilates to the biome of your environment over time. And you can actually map the shift in the microbial makeout of your body, whether it's on your skin or in your stomach, based on if you move to a new place or if you change your diet.
Right.
Right. This is stuff that we're able to begin tracking now in science. Incredibly fascinating. What we're finding is that there's this connection between human health and earth health, right? So we've talked about that. Okay, but it actually still goes even farther.
But wait, there's more.
There is more, right? Because then we can talk about our hormones and our physiology, right? We can talk about like circadian rhythms, things that we've known about for a long time. We can talk about moods. We can talk about seasonal depression. We can talk about all these kinds of things. We know intrinsically and also now empirically through research and studies that our physiology is connected to the world around us. Right. Does it stop there?
I'm guessing no.
It doesn't stop there. There's more. Now, psychology is agreeing with what religion has known for a long time, right? That being outside, thinking not of yourself, but of your surroundings, has significant impacts on your mental well-being. Now, more and more therapists are writing prescriptions for nature walks, for joining nature clubs, for connecting with the outdoors, for doing sunrise walks or sunset runs.
Yeah.
Because there's this understanding that when you get outside of yourself, literally, and you set your mind to things that aren't about you, your whole sense of well-being increases. Yeah. So again, there's a connection.
I've heard it literally put that if you can, it's literally like you're taking a bath in the forest.
Yeah.
If you can do that walk, if you can get out in nature, you're literally bathing yourself in this environment. You're bathing yourself in the surroundings, like your body is actually absorbing one of these things. And I so wish that, it's something that we did more as a family, other than just on our vacations. We take some vacations to some relatives, and there's this forest walk. Like I literally feel like I'm absorbing the the redwoods and the ferns that I'm walking around in, and I'm very intentional to do that. But going in and knowing that my self, right, my being is actually in a weird way interacting with and it seems corny. It might seem corny, but I think to C.S. Lewis and Tolkien that these trees they really are alive, and they do. If you walk through a forest and you hear the sounds of them moving in the wind, and I think about it like, oh, they're talking, and like, what kind of crazy person am I to think about this? But it really is its own language. And so to have that, and to have your, I used to think my wife, my crazy hippie wife, when we had kids, like, let them run barefoot, let them get grounded, let them ground to the ground. And the like, our kids had their little, leather shoes, and we'd let them run barefoot as much as they wanted to. And there is something to be said for that.
There's a whole movement around it, barefooting. Of grounding to, and of course there's a book called The Secret Life of Trees. Have you read it?
I've not.
Oh my goodness. It's all about the secret languages of trees and how they communicate, how they exchange nutrients, how they help other sick trees or kill off trees that could spread disease to other trees in the forest. I mean, it's incredible. And so, the forest is alive in more ways than we can.
It's incredible. Well, and I'm thinking too, I'm holding this, my wife posted this documentary that I think about too, called Kiss the Ground. And again, you're talking about those layers of earth with the microbes in there. And if we're killing those off with pesticides and stuff like that, that's actually, we don't think about how interconnected even the smallest organism is, and how by killing those off, that actually has a job in the ecosystem, in the ecosphere. And like, it might be why our planet might be warming up a bit, because there aren't things to digest all the things that we're putting out there to then take care of it, filter it down, and recycle and reuse it.
Yeah. And absolutely. And what I love about things like Kiss the Ground and The Hidden Half of Nature and The Secret Life of Trees is it's people who esteem themselves as advanced and learned catching up to what indigenous people have known for time immemorial. Right now, they could not have articulated the words we attribute to it but they absolutely embodied the practice, right? And some of the best learning that I've done has been just listening to indigenous voices on this topic.
Yeah.
And the more that I listen to indigenous voices, the more that I'm like, oh, I was romanticizing that because someone wrote a book and made a lot of money and made it sound really good. But actually, if I stop romanticizing that, but continue to engage the practice, then I can grow in these different ways. And so that's been like, so yeah, it's amazing how much indigenous wisdom there is out there. Um, and then also a little bit shocking about sometimes how hard it can be to find it because it can be so drowned out by other voices.
Yeah.
Um, then that's not to say that the other voices don't have good things to say, but I really do just want to take a pause to really acknowledge that, like, my best teachers are people who have an oral tradition passed down to them through generations that now, because of social media and other things, are able to put into the world that I'm able to learn from. And I want to do better about that myself.
I'd love to unpack this later. I want to make sure that we're keeping on time here, but I'm curious to know if you, like me, I know we kind of grew up in a similar, Judeo-Christian background, and always, intentionally or not, like trying to stay away from like the Mother Earth and almost kind of seem like that new agey type view of what Earth is, and oh my gosh, like this is crazy, like we can't get into that. And similar to you, finding that there's indigenous ways and traditions that actually is a respectful, like there's a reason why it's your mother, take care of your mother. There's a respect and there's an honor towards this, that if we disrespect our mother, we're finding what the consequences are of that. And that, to me, that was always for me such fringe stuff growing up, that I've not been able to really even start to wrap my head around it, or trying to get past like the taboo of it until now. And it's in conversations that we've been having, again, other conversations that you're saying now with social media, like more of these conversations are out there and we can engage in them. So is there anything that you've had to overcome in trying to get those voices like to be more in your face?
Oh yeah. I mean, so much religious dogma. And again, I know, because we've mapped it out a little bit, that we are going to have several episodes that kind of drill into that a little bit.
Yeah.
So I won't do that here, but there here's what it came down to for me. I had to get to a place of spiritual freedom where I could see what is as actually what is. And that sounds really silly, but there was so much dogmatic obstacles for me just observing reality as it is that I had to work through. So here, let's just talk about this a little bit, right? So for those of those listening who had a similar upbringing to ours in any kind of a Christian church, right? We're taught to only attribute certain attributes to God, right? Like, God is the great provider. God is the one who, all good things come from God. God is the one who gives us our daily bread. God, all these things are attributed to God, right? And yet, if we look at just what is, it's the earth that gives us all those things. And I'm not saying God isn't involved in it, but I'm just saying, like, can we just look at what is, right? The earth provides. The earth provides everything, right? And it goes so far beyond just our food, because obviously, like, the earth has literally supported every human life since the beginning of time. There has been no human life without the earth. There hasn't been a single meal that a human has had in all of history that didn't come from the earth. Right? We think about the microphones we're talking into, the computers we're on, we think about the chairs we're sitting in. Every piece of that came out of the earth.
We've got things on the moon that came
came out of
the earth.
Yes. The technology that's giving us permission to disconnect from the earth came from the earth.
Exactly.
Right? So the earth is the provider. And in fact, I just turned in an assignment for my master's thing earlier today. And I was talking about this idea that, like, I was talking about this kind of contrast and ways of thinking about God and comparing it to the earth. And I said, well, can we say that the earth is constant, right? Because we say, well, God never changes. Can we
Mm.
say that the earth never, can we say that the earth is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow? Well, yes, I think we can, because the earth has proved that it has supported every human life from the beginning of time. That's about as constant as sunrise and sunset every day for all of history. That's about as stable as you get, right? So the earth takes on all of this language that my upbringing reserved for God and said, if you attach that to anything other than God, you are now a heretic. And when I got to a place of spiritual freedom where my eyes could just see what was in front of me, then I could just say, well, okay, like I get that God is those things and the earth is those things. Now, if you want to, does God do it through the earth, whatever, I'm not even going to get in that argument right now, right? Just the idea that let's just see with our eyes what's there in front of us.
Mm.
The earth provides,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then, and then all of the metaphor we have to describe our inner lives is rooted in the earth, right? Now, psychology has this thing of like following technological developments, right? So if you look at like kind of pre-Freudian psychology, a lot of it, they thought that what was happening in your brain was like pressure that needed to be released. Well, guess what was invented around then? Like the steam engine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the locomotive. And now you think about the way that people talk about psychology, they talk about like circuitry and wiring. Well, yeah, it's because digital circuits have taken over our lives. So there is this trend to like follow technology, but the lasting metaphors are rooted in the earth, because that was always the first, and I believe the last teacher that we have to look to. When we try to describe something that's beyond our knowing, we describe the things that we know, which ultimately and always come back to the earth, because that is really the only home we've ever had.
Yeah.
It's the only reference point of meaning for all of human experience.
Yeah.
And it's a transhuman experience, right? So we can use these metaphors. We talk about like, oh man, I'm stressed at work. I just really need to get grounded. Like, I just need to really ground. Like, I'm feeling like you're a little too confrontational. I just need to kind of ground myself a little bit.
Right.
We're using all of these metaphors about the ground in describing our mental nature. But then what we do, and this is, to me, this is this is the part where I'm like, oh man, like, is there a way we can rebalance some of this stuff? Right? Because we say the metaphor about the earth, but the earth never comes into our awareness when we say the metaphor.
Tell me about it. Unpack that a little bit for me.
Well, let's talk about religiously, because that might be even more obvious, right? So anyone who sat in church and heard a Jesus parable has heard something about the earth. But how many times is the focus of the sermon the earth? So we'll talk about parables. We'll talk about like, sowing seed on the land.
Right.
And we don't even talk about the land or the seed. We jump right to the metaphysical, spiritual application of it.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah. Great point.
Same in psychology, same in business. Any place where you use an analogy of the earth, we use the words, but we are so disconnected from the earth that the image of the earth or the presence of the earth or the embodiment of the earth never even enters our reality when we're talking about the earth.
Yeah.
And can we bring that back?
Yeah.
Right? Can we move back into a place? I'm not asking for everyone to like go run through the forest naked, right? But like, can we learn how to pay attention?
Yeah.
To realize.
I mean, if you want to, maybe if that helps you connect with the earth, but
just invite us if you do. That's all I'm saying. But can we get to a place where the metaphors at least conjure up an image in our head? Right. And as we go through life, like, oh, I was just talking about, things bearing fruit.
Right.
Well, oh, what if I just paused and held in my mind an image of what's in fruit right now, whatever that is? If it's November or January or July, can I hold that in my mind? If I can't, why not? Is it because I don't know what's in season right now? Okay, well, guess what? I have a computer in my pocket. Let me Google it. What's in season right now? Oh, okay. Now I can hold that image in my head when I use that metaphor.
Yeah.
That small of a change can begin this step into an awareness that like we are the earth and the earth is us. There isn't this disconnected divide that we've come to believe that there is. Right. And like Because when we talk about the earth, we're familiar with using metaphor, but it's way more than that, right? The earth reflects us, literally and psychologically. The earth is literally holding us right now.
Right.
In this conversation and wherever you're listening, the earth is holding you, period. Unless you're on the ISS, which kudos, give us a shout out on social media. I want to know you're listening to us in outer space.
100%.
But
100%.
my money's on the fact that if you're listening to this, the earth is holding you. Right.
And you think about like just this fragile, because you mentioned space, and I'm such a space nerd. I love watching all the documentaries on how we got to the moon, and like on this technology that is our iPhones are 100,000 times more sophisticated than what they had to get to the moon. Blah blah blah. But it's amazing to one of the discoveries that was made when we went to the moon is actually our home and where we live, and this very delicate ball balanced in space, right? And hearing people that go up to the International Space Station say, if I could just bring a couple of world leaders up into the space station for just a little bit to look down on this very fragile planet that we have, and you don't see borders, you just see the land, and you see what we have and our responsibility and our duty to it. They're like, I wish I could bring people up here to help them understand actually the value of what we have and how fragile it could be if we're not socially and environmentally responsible for what we're doing.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I haven't tracked many interviews with astronauts, but I wonder how many of them said, once I got to outer space, I would have been fine never coming back to Earth. I wonder how many of them get to outer space and say, oh my gosh, I miss it already. Because I wonder, like, there is something human where our souls feel at home in the earth. Right? Like, I mean, how many times are we like, oh, I just need to go on a walk in nature to reconnect with myself? Well, what are you actually doing? You're actually reconnecting with nature, but nature in its unordered, unmanufactured existence speaks a language, hums at a frequency that our souls tune into. Right? It's the natural operating frequency of our souls.
So good.
And so, and our bodies are too. We're just really disconnected from our bodies also, right? And that's
and just recently, and the thing, I love technology. I honestly do love the age that we live in. But the idea that recently my family and I, we went on a family trip to Orlando, right? And I wake up in the morning very early, and I'm in a very cold place, and I have jackets on, and then I get in this silver tube, and in a few hours I'm on the other side of the country, and now it's hot. And why is it so hot? And why is it humid? Like, the journey there was just kind of in this isolated bubble, and now I'm in this other place in the earth, and like I never really transitioned to, and now I'm in this completely other different environment. I don't even know how to relate to it because I'm there like that, and it's beautiful and I love it. But at the same time, there's something in the journey that we miss and that our bodies don't have such a hard time adapting to. I've never sweat so much in the month of February as I did in Orlando, but it really is this weird relationship that we can have because we can transport ourselves so quickly, back and forth without going through the process or going through the season. So, there's an amazing thing, but there's also this disconnection, right, that we have. And so, part of I feel like part of my job here at Kaben is to say, I'm going to be that guy, we're going to need to be ending here. But speaking of that connection, one of the things that we have to kind of close out here is a journey to the center of the earth. And I don't want us to miss this. I'd love for you to take us through kind of what you're intending for this journey to, I think of Jules Verne, but maybe you've got your own thing here.
Well, no, I mean, obviously it's inspired by that because he wrote the book. But really it's not nearly so fantastical. It's much more just grounded. And so the idea would be just a small meditative practice that just takes 30 minutes wherever you are, wherever you're listening to this. Right. So we've had a lot of conversation about earth connection, specifically connecting to our health. And there's going to be lots of conversations throughout season 2 that explore this intersection of earthiness. So as we begin to frame that, close your eyes, picture where you are. Chances are you're not sitting directly on top of the earth. There's something between you and the earth. Maybe you're wearing shoes. So start there. Imagine your shoes, feel your shoes. Then feel whatever's underneath your shoes. Is it wood, concrete, some kind of prefabricated plastic, tile? What's underneath that? Some kind of substrate. Underneath that, are you on a raised slab? Are you 4 stories up? Are you on a concrete slab? What's underneath you? Keep going down. Go through the next layer and the next until you get to soil. And maybe that soil is buried under 6 feet of concrete, but there is soil directly underneath you. And in that soil, there are microbes. And in that soil, there is life. And pause and hold the awareness of the specific, limited, life-full earth directly underneath your feet. So that's the meditative practice. The reason why I stop at soil is because, like the beach, there's this very thin layer of earth that supports all of our life. There's a whole lot of earth underneath it. Most of it we don't know. But the top 24 inches of the earth gives us all of our food, which is incredible to think about.
That's amazing.
Right? They say if aliens evaporated 6 inches of soil off the whole surface of the earth, all of humanity would die within a year.
No kidding. Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So connect to that dirt. Because everything in our current reality, all the momentum of our culture pushes us to detach from the earth.
Mm.
Just think about how many layers you had to work through until you hit soil. And how often do you think about the literal soil under your feet? Was this the first time? How many lives have walked upon that soil directly underneath you that you're literally hovering over, detached? Right? This is the pull of dualism to separate us from the earth. But one path toward healing is to awake to an awareness of the earth under our feet, to begin building patterns of feeling that earth under our feet, and maybe more importantly, to abide in a specific, limited place that is ultimately real. The earth under your feet right now is more real than your Instagram feed. It is the realest thing around you. So one theme for season 2 is going to be calling forward that awareness. And we're going to be exploring different ways to think about that awareness, different ways of interacting with the earth, some tools on which way to think. And that's really what these kind of tractor thoughts are going to be. There's going to be lots of conversations about religion and spirituality thrown in as well, along with some other topics. But it's going to circle around this idea of like, there's some connection between soil, soul, and city that's worth spending some time looking at. And that's what we're going to do.
I can't wait. I'm excited. I was there with you. I had my eyes shut. I was going down. I'm like, okay, there's a level below me. There's a floor below me. Then I don't even know if there's a slab below. I don't even know what's down there. So thanks for taking us through that exercise. That was fantastic. And again, just that, I think that's really what we're trying to hope here is that stillness and that presence, right? For right now, just to be able to kind of sit and be present in these thoughts, in these concepts, in these, I love it, even in these meditations. So, Kaben, I'm excited to continue on and unpack these tractor thoughts because I know there's a lot of them, and I think it's going to be really valuable conversations for folks to join into. So appreciate it.
Oh man, it's going to be a blast. And again, just remember, guys, if you want to get even deeper in with us, jump on Patreon. We'd love to engage you there too, because that's really where we take it to the next level.
Fantastic. Well, hey, excited for the next one. See you next time.
Absolutely. See you next time.